At 7 o'clock, is everyone ready to begin? Just wait for councillors to settle to their places. All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to call this meeting of Saanich Council to order on Monday, November the 2nd. We have usual council meetings split into two halves. First, a regular council meeting followed by a committee of the whole, which I'm going to invite Councillor Haynes to sit in the chair for that portion. So with that, we'll start with the first agenda item, the adoption of the minutes, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council minutes for adoption are the special meetings of 25th, 26th, and the council meeting of the October 26th.
Move adoption.
Okay. Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move to item B, bylaws for final reading.
This bylaw is the zoning amendment bylaw 9316. It's in relation to property on Halliburton and Wesley Road. It's a subdivision, proposed 6-lot residential subdivision. The items that were conditional after third reading have now been concluded, and council can give this bylaw final reading, and also a secondary motion on the waiver for the statutory frontage requirement relaxation. Thank you.
Discussion. I'll call the question on final reading. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Durbin is opposed. That motion is carried. And then we need the motion on the waiver. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
The waiver of statutory frontage requirement.
Okay, moved by Councillor Rice, seconded by Councillor Haynes. Any discussion on that? None. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Durbin is opposed. That motion carries. All right, let's move on to the next item, please, Madam Clerk.
This item is final reading of the oil burning equipment, inflammable liquid combustible fuel tank bylaw amendment 9344 for final reading.
The final reading. Second.
Moved by Councillor Rice, seconded by Councillor Sanders. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. That was a mouthful.
It is.
I think it should be the oil burning and equipment inflammable liquid combustible liquid fuel tank mouthful. Or that's
Now we're going to have to amend it.
That's right. Okay, at this time I'd like to call the public to come up for public input. If you wish to speak on the Saanich Municipal Hall Interior Landscape Heritage Designation for 1095 Mackenzie. That's for the committee of the whole portion of the agenda. You can hold your comments until then. If you'd like to comment on the animals bylaw, the water utility bylaw, zoning bylaw amendment, 593 Agnes Street, 1765 Mortimer Street, or the review of the building permit development permit application processes, I'll invite you now up to the microphone. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak to these items? Please come forward. Calling for a second time. Any members of the public? Calling for a third time? All right, seeing none, we'll end that section on the agenda of public input, and we'll move on to bylaws for third readings.
This first bylaw for 3 readings is the Animals Amendment Bylaw 9322. This is to align the payment due date to the fee increase date for dog licenses.
Move first reading. Second.
Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed, that motion carries unanimously.
Move second. Second.
Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed, that motion carries unanimously.
Move third. Second.
Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Could we also have a motion to approve the policy?
That would be on the next item under D2.
I'm sorry, I ran a step here, thank you.
So this next item is the first 3 readings of the Water Utility Amendment Bylaw 9357 to implement changes to the terms for the district's utility penalties. And the secondary motion would be for the approval of the policy, which is also appended to that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. So,
First reading.
thank you.
Second.
I call the question, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed, that motion carries unanimously.
Move second reading. Second.
Thank you. Call the question on that, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed, that motion carries unanimously.
Move third reading. Second.
Thank you. Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed, that motion carries unanimously. And the motion to approve the policy, please.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed, that motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you. Let's move on to item E, bylaws for first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item, these next few items are for first reading only of the bylaws. The first item is the zoning amendment bylaw 9358 to prohibit the use of float homes and other floating vessels on the district's waterways. This item, Agnes Street and Mortimer, are all subject to public hearing, and that public hearing is scheduled for November 17th. So these are first reading only.
Do we move them as a unit or as
Individually.
Yes. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Let's move to item 2, please.
This is first reading of zoning amendment bylaw 9359, rezoning the property at 593 Agnes Street from the RS6 to RD1 for proposed addition to the existing single-family dwelling to construct a duplex.
Move first reading.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
And this is first reading of zoning amendment bylaw 9360, rezoning a portion of the property at 1765 Mortimer Street to RS4 for a proposed residential subdivision for 1 additional lot.
Move first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. All right. Conclude that section. Let's move on to item F, recommendations from committees.
Thank you. This next item is a recommendation from the Planning, Transportation, Economic Development Advisory Committee, recommending the Council approve a review of the administrative processes to improve the timeline for building permits and development permits to be included in the 2016 strategic plan.
Councillor Haynes, would you like to talk to this?
Yes, I'd like to move that.
Seconded by Councillor Plant. Go ahead, Councillor Haynes.
So, thank you, Mayor, thank you, Council. This has been something that was brought forward to planning the PTEP committee earlier in the year, and it was in response to questions around timelines, inefficiencies around development applications and building permits. And from talking with staff, the Director of Planning, we explored different approaches, and the recommended approach was that such a review would need Council's approval to build the process into 2016 strategic plan, such that the director would have the commitment of council and the resources required in terms of time and focus to undertake such a review. Let me give you some further background. These two items, the times for building permits and development permits, are impacted by a wide range of issues. And from working with the Director of Planning, the idea is to have a wider scope such that we can range around all of the issues that may impact. And I'd like to mention some. For example, the quality of the application itself. Is it well prepared? Is it complete? And how does that impact the process? And is the information delivery to coach the residential builder and the professional builder, are they all that they can be? That talks to front desk processing. Once the applications are in, what are the timelines for dealing with the issues that are confronted by each of these development applications or building permits? Community input, the consultation with the community associations and residents, that has a time loop and a valued input. Is it as efficient or as well structured as it can be? Can we do better? Or is it everything it needs to be? When it gets to council timing, the structure of the council meetings, are we as efficient as we can be in doing our land use applications through the council process? The issue of variances. Should we, rather than individual variances, do a blanket variance, for example, on height, which might speed up development processes because variances are included in some of these applications. We already have from Councillor Brownhoff, seconded by me, a process to look at our amenities. Sometimes at the council process it's the negotiation around amenities that impact time to development permits. If that was codified or streamlined in some way, would that help the community understand what some of the asks would be, and therefore reduce some of the times, and more importantly, perhaps reduce some of the uncertainty? Because part of this issue is around the uncertainty, where there's back and forth, and there can be uncertainty that impacts out to the community. What should and what could the community be asked for? There's another item. One of the things we looked at PTED was the online availability of the processing of the documents. Where are they in the chain? We looked at other cities when we visited Edmonton for the FCM. They have their whole development process online, so staff can coach the applicant online and get data online. Now we're away from that. We're quite a distance from that because of our own in-house IT development. But these are things that could be looked at in such a review that we've asked for here. As we know, Saanich is a wonderful place to live, and part of the development process and the time it takes to bring the developments forward is part of what ensures Saanich continues that. At the same time, time is money. So anything we can do to reflect and improve our systems is an opportunity that we should value and look forward to do so. We've heard ourselves just recently that sometimes it's important to be introspective and look at how we are doing. So this is that opportunity. And I'd like to ask for council support in empowering our staff to undertake this review of processes to improve the timelines for building permits and development permits, looking at our internal efficiencies. Thank you.
Councillor Durham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support the motion. I think there's always space and room to make improvements. But I will mention the fact that we have done at least 2 similar reviews in recent years in the time I've been on council. And I think while we can change some things to create some efficiencies, I think we all need to realize that the biggest single thing we can do to change the speed of development applications is to get on with doing visionary long-range planning. Saanich in the 80s and early 90s, development applications went through really quite quickly with considerably older technologies. But they did so because councils prior had created a vision of where they wanted the municipality to go. They had done the hard work at first of consulting the public on that vision and other stakeholders, and there had become a general agreement that, for example, in this case, we would build out to the urban containment boundary and not beyond, and furthermore, there was a master parks greenways plan in place that we would accomplish in the process of that build-out. So there was a sense that everybody knew where they were going, and thus the extent of consultation and so forth needed on an individual application was much less. Now we are past that vision. We have not really yet managed to put together a concrete vision for our future redevelopment of urban areas. So most of the applications come to us essentially as a one-off, without the context of us having a map where we need to go. And until we do provide that visionary map of what we see Saanich as being 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, and 40 years from now, we will continue to have a slower than desirable development application process, I think. So this will be helpful, but the really big help is, I think, when we say to the development community, this is what we are trying to accomplish overall. And then they know what the goalposts are, and they can react accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Workman?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I do support the intent of this motion, but I probably don't support the process where it is going. And as I've listened to council and a number of us over the last while, it seems like this strategic plan is becoming a catch-all for all. And we used to strike a committee or ask for a staff report. And now we refer the item to a strategic plan, where eventually we'll look for increased budgets to hire a consultant to do an in-depth study on it. So a year and a half, 2 years down the road, we will get a report back to this council. And I, for one, I guess what I'm looking at is not to solve all the problems, but I'm looking to solve some of the problems in the process. And I don't believe we have to send it off for a couple of years and put it into the strategic plan. I believe there's some basic things out there. If we ask staff for a report back and just ask them, how could we cut back on the time it does take for permits and for plans? I believe there's a simpler answer to it. A couple of months back, we also did the same with, I believe, Councillor Braunhoff's recommendation on community amenities. Where did we send it? Put it into the strategic plan. Again, 2 years down the road, we'll probably be talking about it around this table. And I keep saying, let's just try and keep it simple and get some answers today and not down the road too far. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Brownhoff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I was going to ask staff for a comment. This would, if this motion passes, it will be referred to the strategic plan process. But as Councillor Wergelin just mentioned, and Councillor Derman, we've done a lot of this process before. Would we receive a report from planning first so we understand what might be missing?
We could certainly provide a report of the areas that we would explore, and you could provide us guidance on that. Part of the difficulty and the reason of forwarding it to the strategic plan is really a resource allocation. The best people to understand where there are problems and where the issues might lie and how to improve them are staff. If you want to, in advance of that process, provide us with some guidance about what we could put to the back burner in order to put more staff time on this, that would be helpful. As you'll remember, you've asked us to come back with a revised process for our LEPs, for an example, to do more quickly. And so we just need some guidance, either as part of the strategic plan 2016 discussion, or sooner if you wish.
So if I could, Mr. Mayor, to the mover and seconder, would you favor adding an addition to your motion that we receive a staff report first?
Go ahead, Councillor.
If I may, I'd like to come back to our Director of Planning first, because I am sensitive to the asks that we're coming to planning. So the question we have is, what are our priorities? We've asked to accelerate a few things here. If the Director could just answer that on process, what impact would it have to have a slim summary report of the key areas you suggest we look at, sort of, rather than a report, a guidance document, like a one-page guidance document of the areas you think would be suitable for this review?
We could certainly do a summary report in fairly short order, and what I mean is that would probably be, given other pressing timelines, January.
Yes, that works.
The reality is that basically that would provide you an understanding of the areas that we think are worthy of exploration.
Yes.
The key thing of any, exploratory process is not to assume the answers.
Heaven forbid.
Right. That's the easy part. I'm not sure it will get you much further down the road than having a more fulsome discussion about how much of a priority is this as compared to accelerating LAPs, urban goats, all of the other issues that you have. And I'm thinking, I can certainly provide you that summary report. I'm just wondering how much value it would be to further discussion.
Okay, so let me describe for you. I don't think we need an evaluation of which are the priority areas, LAPs versus other reports. What we're looking for is the staff point of view of the basket of areas you feel there can be improvements in our internal administration and efficiencies in building permit and development permit processes. The whole basket, including council procedures, community engagement, developers, expertise. What is the basket of goods we could work with to see where we can do some improvements in efficiencies and saving time? I think that's what Councillor Brown is mentioning, and I think that's what Councillor Worthing is mentioning. So if we could have, a 2-page description of those items without lengthy paragraphs behind them, I think we can get a sense of them in just a sentence or two on each one.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, friendly amendment accepted. Thank you.
okay. So what I was looking for is that I understand what Councillor Workland's saying, that our strategic plan is how we manage resources and funding. And we really need to always move things. And we actually, as a council, passed that motion when we were doing our last discussion with the strategic plan. We said that if you want to get new things moved, you moved it to the strategic plan. So if that is what is going to happen, as well as the 2-page summary, maybe goes back to your committee.
Yes.
And then this could move forward to the strategic plan process, and there might be some more information. But it's about setting priorities, staff, financial resources, and along with all the other asks that's in that basket for 2016. So
if I can just speak briefly on myself, I'm finding myself, having listened to what I've heard so far, there's a bit of an ill fit of putting this in the strategic plan. If we were to look at a number of departments and put them under the same lens, would we put them all in the strategic plan as well? Is it the suitable place for that? I'm also concerned to hear that we've done this kind of review in the past a number of times already, and how is this review going to be defined to be any different or give us any more information? Is it going to give staff enough direction on this? I think at a basic level, we're dealing with a comparison between ourselves and other municipalities, whether they be simple, whether they be complex, whether we have a lot of regulations compared to others, and so forth. I think where I would like this to go, where we can get to a better place in terms of speeding up the process, if I can just call it that, is that we are able to architect as a council more of what Councillor Dermott was talking about, which is the visionary planning. If we do the visionary planning and we say this is how the community would like the community to develop and grow, then developers come in the front door and they follow the roadmap and they bring something forward. It gets approved by the planning department. We don't have to do much here. In the absence of that, the council they become ad hoc planners, and I think we've seen a lot of that at our council meetings, which takes a lot of time and it creates a lot of uncertainty for developers not knowing what the expectation level is. So my hope would be that we could push this forward to get some more information on it, and then as a group decide how we're going to proceed about tackling that visionary piece, because without it we're going to end up here as planners, and we have a planning department for that. And that's something I'm very, very concerned about. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I have to agree with you on that. When I heard this right away, I know that we've done many different studies on this, and I think it's good for us all to be reminded what already is being done. I think we have to keep in mind too, and Councillor Dermott alluded to it, I don't know that I call it so much as a vision, but in the 60s, you know, we were a blank slate and, you know, do what we want. But now that we are built out in our urban area, it's a lot more difficult for a developer, anybody wanting to do something, to fit in with that. So it's not just a case that we're going to give a variance for everybody for height or a variance for this, because it's not going to work. What works in one neighborhood is maybe not going to work in the next, even the public process. So to me, this is about capacity. It's always about capacity. You can put it into the strat plan, but you know, we've already heard from staff, the department doesn't have capacity, whether it's planning or engineering. That makes it difficult. So what's in the queue? We've been given a printout in the past of things that we've already sent on, and so that we're aware of that list that keeps getting longer and longer, and you wonder why it doesn't come back. Well, we have a major hiring going on if we're going to be able to have that capacity. So I like the idea that we get a report, we see what's already being done, so that we're not reinventing the wheel, and let the planning department look at it that way.
Councillor Haynes, go ahead.
Right, so hang on for a sec. I just wonder if we can, at this stage, get a cross-reference on the previous request about the amenity package, because they are quite linked in terms of, or should we keep them separate? Okay. Nods on separate. Staff, can we have staff input on that? Yep.
Mr. Mayor, I think yes, staff would view they are separate issues. What I'm hearing at this point is that you would like an inventory and for us to provide of the current development process, the contingencies are there, and provide that in a short report to council, which time council can then look at the information and then decide how they wish to proceed from there.
Yes, with suggestions around where we can get efficiencies or staffing or new processes or reporting. No?
Mr. Mayor, I think that what staff would do is provide those how the system works, the steps you go through, and the policies, because the policies that are being developed are an accumulation of policies that Saanich has developed over a number of years. They're council policies, they're things you put into place for a number of good reasons, to protect the environment, to protect neighborhoods, etc. And I think you should see what those inventories are, how they work, and then if there's changes to those are things council needs to provide direction on.
Thank you for that guidance.
Yeah, what I'm reading here is the council approve or review the administrative processes to improve the timeline for building permits and development applications to be included in the 2016 strategic plan. That is a huge ask. It's a large ask in terms of figuring out and mapping out what we do. A lot of it's in our head, and we mentor people and we just do the work. And then on top of that, we have to analyze it and figure out ways of improving it and providing those options to council. I think it's a large amount of work. Councilor Redmond.
Thank you very much to the planner. I don't need to bring it up, but I think about 3.5 years ago, we were going to get a report, and I brought the request forward to council for a report on parking variances. I know some of the other councillors have brought requests, and I think what it tells us as council, we need to look at everything we have out there and get some order to it all. Tonight we're asking for another report, and I'm asking myself, does that come behind the one I had in 3 years ago or in front of it? And it's those sort of things I think we have to address in the near future. Maybe in the new year, if we could bring it forward and bring everything forward.
I think that was the beauty of this year's discussion as part of the strategic planning development, was to indicate what capacity you can actually deliver, and then indicate that if you want to add more, you have to deal with the resource issue, either take something off, modify it, or apply more resources. And that was, I think, the gist of this motion, in my mind, was just to put it forward to the 2016 discussion, which should occur fairly early in 2016, to figure out where you want to put your priorities. We can certainly provide you a summary report I would agree with the mayor, it's a huge ask to do all of that work and do it thoughtfully and in a way that you don't have unintended consequences. So we can provide you a summary that may facilitate narrowing your scope into areas that you're all interested in collectively as council. I suspect there might be 7 or 8 paths that you could go down. You might just, as a council, choose to go down 1 or 2 of those. Understanding too that they're all interconnected. Pulling a thread on one will move something somewhere else. And so, as a planner, I would say that probably the better value might be in putting a priority on it, putting resources towards it, not more, but maybe reallocation, and doing it properly once rather than tinkering with different streams. But I think that's something we can bring forward in the summary report so you can understand what your choices are. So we can do that, as I said, in fairly short order in January, and then you can decide what you would like to explore. That makes sense.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Strategic plan.
Councillor Brennhoff?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my understanding through you to staff is that in the new year, council will receive some sort of supplementary report. Even if this motion passes, that supplemental report will come to us before we start discussions on strat plan, and then we'll have something in front of us. And then when we go into the strategic plan process, we'll have that as well as all the other asks that are on the table right now. Is that right?
That would be correct. I'm assuming that the motion tonight would be for staff to deliver that report, and then this motion could actually just be either whatever the clerk would suggest. But I'm thinking that the first step, if you've asked for a report, is wait for that report to come back and then make whatever motions are appropriate rather than presupposing your decision.
Madam Clerk, what is the motion on the floor?
The motion on the floor is that council approve a review of the development processes to improve the timeline for building permits and development applications. This item, as the review, would be included in the 2016 strategic